This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Well, Facci, the Pacers do it again. They get their fourth victory in a row, taking down the Bulls 129-113 behind the play of Pascal Siakam and Thomas Kobe Bryant. It was a fun one tonight. The Pacers pretty much dominated the entirety of the game. The Bulls did make it a little bit interesting in the fourth quarter, but not really like that serious. But it did feel a little serious. But the Pacers overall felt like they had pretty much the control of this game from the beginning to the end. So, just another nice victory from the Pacers. But where do you want to start?
I would just start by a little bit of domination. Now, I just want to put it into perspective. Look, if you look at the box score and the final score, it doesn't tell the full story. Indiana led by as many as 34 in this game. That's their largest, lead that they've had at any point during the season. They led by 19 at halftime. That was the largest halftime lead that they've had. And then Pat Boylan had a great stat. In 2025, in the four games they've had, Indiana has led for 177 of the 192 minutes thus far in 2025. We are seeing this team playing some great basketball right now.
We really are. And I mean, honestly, like they were up, like you said, 32, was it 32 points? Or was it
34.
34?
34.
They were up 32. It was like 100-68 after Jarris Walker made two with like a minute 47 left in the third quarter. And that's when Chicago went on a 27-9 run. And the Pacers had to bring their starters back into the game. They really didn't want to do that, but I just have to say we need to start things off. Myles Turner was not in this game tonight. He was dealing with a non-COVID illness. Tyrese Haliburton was questionable as well with an ankle injury, but Thomas Bryant gets to start. I jokingly said Thomas Kobe Bryant because it just felt like this guy was on a mission tonight. 22 points, 8 rebounds in just 28 minutes. I don't know how many times I got questions on my Twitter feed, but it was like, is Thomas Bryant the guy they should start moving forward? Oh, what about Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman? Is it too early to say that Thomas Bryant's better than them? Look, it's a one-game sample size against a not-so-motivated Bulls team right now. For whatever reason, they just look like they were kind of going through the motions. But you got to give Thomas Bryant a lot of credit for the way he played tonight, the energy he played with once again, and taking advantage of an opportunity. We've talked about this before. When guys get opportunities, they need to take advantage of it. Thomas Bryant did just that tonight.
Oh, I loved every second of what I saw. I did not know that, Turner was feeling the way that he was feeling. And when he was ruled out, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. All right, we'll be a little thin at center. Let's see what happens. Vucevic has given the Pacers problems in the past. I know he's not maybe what he once was, but Thomas Bryant really stepped up tonight. I feel like he brought great energy. He always does that. But even early on, he had 11 points at halftime and then really got it going to start the third quarter, which was great. Carlisle said he was going to match the minutes with Thomas Bryant and Vucevic, and it's a landslide. Thomas Bryant won that matchup.
Yeah.
Just really, really brought his A game. 22 points, 8 boards, like you said. And then you look at Vucevic on the other end, 10 points, 7 boards, 5 of 9 shooting. I mean, one guy's getting paid over $20 million. One guy is getting paid the minimum. And I just feel like Thomas Bryant, like you said, made the most of this opportunity in a time where you didn't really know what you were going to get from the center position tonight.
I mean, look at it this way. Miami, they're a team that's, they've been okay this season. They've been kind of flirting around like the Pacers have been with that play-in spot, and they couldn't find minutes for him because they had too many bigs on their roster. He gets traded to Indiana, and you could just feel like it was just like, breath of fresh air, an opportunity. And Rick Carlisle said on the radio Tuesday morning, he said, Thomas Bryant has just been such a positive energy guy that really fits our locker room. And I think you can feel that every time he's on the floor. Like, I tweeted it, but I don't know how you feel, but like he just makes me laugh throughout the entirety of the game when he's out there, just with his like facial expressions. And like he was mean mugging somebody in like the second quarter about something, and I was just dying laughing. Like he is just mean mugging somebody. I think they didn't call a foul first, and they ended up calling the foul. And he just heard a mean mugging somebody. That's like, this is great. Like, you just need that kind of energy. I mean, you got Jeremiah Johnson at halftime saying, you know what? Thomas Bryant brings so much energy to the game that it's hard to sustain that when you're playing heavier minutes. So, he was kind of wondering maybe Thomas Bryant needs to hold back a little bit. Maybe he doesn't need to be so animated and expressive out there on the floor, but that's just who he is. And so I love every second of it. I think it's really fun. But it's just like you look at a guy that goes from not getting any minutes in Miami to getting an opportunity to start for the Pacers. And he really balled out tonight. I think the Pacers desperately needed to get a legitimate backup 5 for Myles Turner. especially with Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson going down. I understand why they did the things they did with Moses Bryant and Enrique Freeman for that stretch of time because Bryant wasn't eligible to be traded yet. But now that they've got him locked up, I mean, I think that this is a very nice piece to have, a very nice option because he does provide some nice size for you, even if, this might just be like a one game sample size of what kind of production he can put out there when he's getting more minutes. But like, I'm rambling here, but I'm also just trying to make sure I get my point across that I was really impressed with TB tonight.
I was really impressed, and it just makes me go back to when we traded for Thomas Bryant. The common term that came up was, "This doesn't move the needle." I mean, look at he got us a win tonight. I mean, look, you can't just say that he got us the whole entire win, but he was a huge part of this win. And I think that we're going to see, I have full faith in Thomas Bryant right now. It's like, hey, this was the best backup big that you could get for the minimal amount of what you were willing to pay. And I feel like he's delivered. He's got a great just personality. Chris Christinari was talking about how this is his highest scoring game in years, in quite a few years, 3 or 4 seasons. So really happy for him. And then Chris, not a Thomas Bryant stat, but I love me some Christinari stats. But I had a good one. Listen to this. The Pacers have won their last 4 games by double digits for the first time since 2015.
Yep.
It's been almost a decade since then. You can't underestimate the type of good basketball they're playing right now. I don't care who it's against, whether it's the Brooklyn Nets or it's the Chicago Bulls. They're blowing some of these teams out. It's been great to see. And I know Chicago ends up losing this game by 16, but they were really never a threat, even early on. The Pacers pounced on them, leading the first quarter 29-18. They forced 7 turnovers in that first quarter. I just felt like Indiana got after it on the defensive end. They forced 18 turnovers for the game. They only gave up eight turnovers themselves. I mean, typically winning basketball, but here's the thing that I thought was interesting about last game. I mentioned Pacers barely had any assists against the Nets. Like, it was not like them. They got back to Pacer basketball with 37 assists. It's going to be hard to lose games when you're upwards of 35 assists tonight.
Yeah, that's just a great stat. I mean, that just shows you like when the Pacers are at their best. It's when they're sharing the basketball.
Yes.
Like to me, this was a game. Tyrese Haliburton's questionable in this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say like he had like spurts where he didn't look like he was really involved too much. Kind of just took his time to kind of figure out where he wanted to put his production in. But like 16 points, 13 assists. Now he's been the leading scorer the last 3 games before this game, so it was nice that he didn't have to do that, especially dealing with an ankle injury. But like he just had a really nice game. We can't forget that he also had. Did they take one of his steals away? They did. He originally was credited for 3 steals in the first quarter. They took one away, or the first half. They took one away. So that makes me upset. But he did have the best plus minus of anybody on the team with a plus 25. So Tyrese Haliburton was still impacting the game a lot. And you could tell, like, Rick Carlisle was very upset that he had to put his starters back in the fourth quarter. Thought a 32-point lead would be enough that he wouldn't have to play these guys extra minutes. I don't think Mathurin went back in. Maybe he did for a hot second.
Yeah,
he only played 25 minutes with tonight, Mathurin, which is not the norm for him based on what we've seen before. But I mean, for 30 minutes, 7 of 13 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3. Like I thought this was a very solid Tyrese game. It wasn't a point guard game, but like 16 and 13, that's really good.
I mean, look, let's not sleep on it. 13 assists to just 1 turnover. It really is like handling the point guard responsibilities as well as you could. And I feel like this is another thing that I said. If the floor is starting to become like a 16 and 13 type of performance, you can live with that every single time because he's not bottoming out. So over the last, 4 games, he's got 4 turnovers in 4 games. Incredible stuff. Averaging 1 turnover, per night, while talking about averaging over 10 assists in those 4 games. So in the month of January, he's off to an incredible start, averaging just over 27 points per game, over 10 assists per game. He's been just really good, protecting the rock, shooting the ball well, 50% from the field this month, shooting 47% from 3. I mean, we're starting to see a really consistent Tyrese Haliburton. I think for this starting lineup, they're doing well. Obviously, we talked about no turnover. Thomas Bryant fills in great. Fantastic. Andrew Nemhard is a guy that has just been rock solid. I mean, he was a plus 20 tonight, 14 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, saved some of his best for last. He had 9 of his 14 in the fourth quarter when Chicago was going on a run. So I think like that's awesome. And I just feel like this is a game that, Mathurin didn't really have it going from the field, 3 of 12, and it did make a difference. He still played really good defense. There was nothing that was like, oh man, they really needed Mathurin to step up. No, you got your classic Pacer basketball, 6 players in double figures tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Mathurin just 3 of 12 from the field. It was not a good night for him shooting wise or scoring wise. And I feel like there was a few times he was hesitant to shoot. And I think that's because he wasn't hitting early on. But he did have some big games before that. So, you got to give him credit. But, Rick Carlisle has been singing his praises, that he's doing the right things for him. I mean, he just went on a huge rant, probably for about a good 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. He was literally on the radio talking to Kevin Bowe and Andy Sweeney, our friends. And he said, let me just pull this up. He said, we kind of look at things in 3 tiers. And he mentioned how, like, over the last 15 games, Mathurin had a plus in the plus minus, or a positive net rating is what it was. And so he was like, that's pretty good. He said, but if you look at the last 5 games, he's been like number 1 in net rating, right up there with Siakam and Nembhard. And so he said he's really in influencing the game defensively. But Nembhard tonight, I felt like he was really good defensively early on. I think he kind of set the tone. Like, I'm sure you remember that steal that he had that led to a fast break basket. And then the next one that he had where he saved the ball from going out of bounds, threw behind his back to Siakam. Siakam hit Haliburton midcourt. Haliburton, one dribble, past to Mathurin. Mathurin laid it in. And, I mean, the starters were just clicking early on. Listen to this, Facci. 17 minutes played by the starting 5 together. They were a plus 18 in those 17 minutes. They had a net rating of 52.9, positive 52.9. 144.1 offensive rating, a 91.2 defensive rating. Now,
Incredible.
that's
Really
incredible. Now, I'll just throw this out there because it's worth mentioning.
What do you got?
The worst lineup in the game: Pascal Siakam, Jarris Walker, T.J. McConnell, Ben Shepherd, and Enrique Freeman. Only 3 minutes and 50 seconds played, but they had a negative 65.3 net rating. So
I know you're talking about under 4 minutes. I wanted to believe. Look, Enrique Freeman's coming off of a 27-point game in the G League. It didn't take me long to be like, grab some bench. This was not it. I thought this would have been an opportunity. He could have played more in the fourth quarter, but it's like he came in, and it wasn't just on him. But it's like that's when Chicago started going on a run. So I feel like it's just like, yeah, I'm with you. I would have loved if all the starters could have played maybe 25 minutes or less instead of closer to 30 minutes. I know it's just a couple more minutes, but you want to get those guys rest. Just going back to your point on Mathurin, Mark Monteith, friend of the show, had a good stat coming up. For a couple days ago, he said that from his rookie season, to now, his usage rate has dropped from 24.6 to 21.7, but his win share per 48 has risen from 0.038 to 0.052. So he is playing winning team basketball. It's by the numbers. He's improved as a defender. He's improved as a rebounder. He's doing a lot of the things right. A couple of years ago, we talked about it. It's like he was slow on reactions. Sometimes, I don't know if he was spacing out or whatever it is, but he would be late on a lot of reactions. I just feel like he's been better at a lot of those little things. And Carlisle has every right to sing his praises because I do think that he's just been exactly what this team needs this year. But also there's a stat, and I don't have it in front of me, but basically it talked about starting 5s. And it went through plus minus of starting 5s. And from what I saw, Indiana actually had it was the second best starting 5. This might have been in the Eastern Conference. It was the second best starting 5 behind Boston. So I'll have to find that and pull it up. But it was a really good stat of just like in like the 600 or so minutes that this unit's played together. That's Mathurin in the starting lineup, not Aaron Nesmith. They had the second best plus minus behind only the Boston Celtics. So I think that's great. That could be a little bit tampered here or there because the Knicks starters play like
48 minutes a game,
hundreds of more minutes together. So their numbers were lower, but I was impressed to see how high the Pacers numbers were.
No, I mean it's been effective. It really has. And there's been times where I wish they actually played more minutes together. I think sometimes the substitution patterns have dictated guys getting subbed out early for the rotations to make a little bit more sense. So you can get Siakam back in there with that second unit because they just miss having a scorer. They just basically have said we're not going to have anybody out there on the court without Siakam or Haliburton being in the lineup. Like they want to have one of those guys on the floor at all times, which makes a lot of sense. Like you want to have your two best players on the floor at all times possible. And you can find different combinations that work. It's just I feel like this bench unit, and now it's not been the same bench unit every time. Like if Thomas Bryant's coming off the bench instead of Enrique Freeman tonight at the center position, you probably feel a lot better about that just because he has a little bit more experience and knows how to guard a guy like Jalen Smith and has the size to compete with that. So, but anyway, I love tonight's effort from the team. It just felt like early on, like they were just so dominant. Like you mentioned it earlier, like 63-44 at half. Like the Bulls were shooting awful from three at that point, and it was just a lot of bad shooting from them. But also the Pacers played good defense, and so you just like to see that. But I mean, I look at the points in the paint, and I know that's when the Pacers are playing a good brand of basketball, and they're getting 70. I believe it was 76 points in the paint to just Chicago's 54. Chicago got hot late in the fourth quarter, and it made their stats look a lot more level.
Way better. Yeah.
But Indiana still won pretty much everything except the free throw percentage. I mean, you got 46-39 on the rebound percent in the battle there. You've got 37 assists to 23. You got 11 steals to 6. Now, the Pacers did not do great in the blocking category without Myles Turner. They did miss that rim presence tonight, and I
I don't think they had a block.
they had one block.
One block. I mean, look, one block, 0 blocks. Yeah, they were not great in that category. That's definitely something where Turner alone is usually good for 2 to 4. 2 to 4.
Do you know who had the block? If you had to guess, who would you say had the block?
You tell me.
I want you to guess. It's not a starter.
I cheated. I looked.
You looked okay.
I looked.
Jarris Walker.
It was Jarris. Hey, I'll take it. Look, hey.
But he had the worst plus minus too. So.
I know. Look, Jarris has sometimes been a product of some lineups, but yeah, the plus minuses have not been great for Jarris Walker. But I also feel like there was times in this game where Jarris had it going. I mean, he was 5 of 7 from the field. At one point, I know he was 5 of 6. He had some assists in this game, so he's been a much better shooter. I definitely want to give him credit for that, but I think sometimes the minutes haven't gone well for the team. I did find that stat that I was talking about before. Just to be exact, it wasn't just the Eastern Conference. It was the NBA.
Yeah, I was going to say, they were great.
The Pacers starting 5. This is before this game, where the starting 5 you just mentioned was even better. They were the starting 5 of Haliburton, Andrew Nembhard, Bennedict Mathurin, Pascal Siakam, and Myles Turner coming into this game were a plus 20.3 in point differential. Now, that's second behind only the Boston Celtics at plus 23.5. And that is not an exaggeration. They are ahead of teams like OKC and Cleveland, who have been incredible. It's the Pacers starting 5 has been very, very good this year. It's been great to see. And the bench is no slouch, but obviously, they're not quite what the starters are.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not. The bench has been up and down, I think, because of the injuries.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's like, going into the season, like, obviously, you look at the playoffs last year, and it's like your bench unit basically consisted of Isaiah Jackson, Obi Toppin, T.J. McConnell, and Ben Shepherd. You take away Isaiah Jackson from that group, that really does impact that group a lot. Yeah, and then you think going into the year, you're going to have Ben Mathurin off the bench, and now you don't have that. So it's like you've lost probably your 2 best bench players, I would say. I know T.J. McConnell is super important to that bench, and he's kind of the glue that holds it all together. And it's like people, I was kind of laughing. I saw some people on the timeline on Twitter saying, like, T.J.'s just not been doing it for the bench as of late. Like, he's just not been carrying the load. It's like, guys, he's put this bench on his back for the past.
He really has.
Really 3 seasons, it feels like. It's like sometimes you got to just, like, give the man a break. Like, it's like he can't do it for 82 games. Like, my goodness, yeah. He is very impressive with what he's able to do on a night-to-night basis, but, like, sometimes you got to have other guys step up, and while Jarris has been scoring, like, there's just been parts of Jarris's game that are still a work in progress. Ben Shepherd, I mean, I'm telling you what, like, I don't know what he's shooting this year, but it feels like he gets so many good looks that do not fall for him.
It felt like the same kind of thing last year.
It did.
Yeah, he's like, this is a guy who gets good looks, that is a good 3-point shooter that the ball does not go in enough for.
It reminds me of Goga. I mean, Goga, how many good looks did Goga have?
And the shot looked pretty. It looked pretty. It just wouldn't go in. So, yeah, I feel like for Ben Shepherd, hey, look, 1 of 2 tonight, but a lot of times he does get those wide open looks. 7 boards for Shepherd. Love it. I think that, hey, 7 and 7, you could always live with that. But, yeah, I think for TJ McConnell, your point on McConnell, I just looked it up. He had a stretch last month where he scored in double figures 11 of 12 games, and there was a 30-point game in there. And it's like 17 points, 17 points. It's like this man was an assassin in the playoffs. So he doesn't need to bring it every single night. McConnell somehow still manages to have like a career year after year after we write him off. So he'll be just fine. I'm not worried about it. But I'm just happy that like we're starting to get some consistency from a scoring standpoint out of Jarris Walker. I feel like Obi Toppin's been pretty consistent lately. He had 12 points tonight, 5 boards. He was a plus 11. He was definitely the best plus minus off of the bench. So I think that was good. But just overall, a good performance by the team. I think good probably underdoes it. It was a really good performance for most of the game. The fourth quarter, you could probably crumple up and throw out the window. It was very forgettable. But I think this is a game that, like you talked about, Indiana dominated in the paint from an assist standpoint, incredible. They won the rebounding battle, awesome. They protected the rock, they forced turnovers. You really can't ask for more. And this team now, they're 2 games above 500. They're 10-6 at home. Like we are really clicking. I don't want to say the right time because there's still a lot of a lot of the schedule left to play. But man, I think the people that were writing us off saying like this Indiana's a fluke last year, I want to see if they're writing back because right now I'm seeing something. This team showed me something.
Hey, we talked about it before with like talking about Haliburton and his All-Star run and what's going on there. It's just like early season impressions are a real thing, and they kind
They
of
are.
stick. They
Yep.
stick. And it's one of those things where I think people get so excited for the beginning of the year, and like whether your team does good or not is how people judge you for the rest of the season. And so the Pacers got off to a slow start. They were not a great basketball team early on, but I think they've kind of found themselves. I believe they're winners now of 9 of their last 12 games, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
I,
So
I believe so.
because I feel like it was 8 of 11 last time we talked. Maybe I'm wrong, but still, that's
I honestly think it might
75%
be a
of your
little bit
games.
better. I think it could be like 10 of 13, 10 of 13, 10 of 12, yeah, something like that.
Because they lost 3 games in a row there to OKC, Boston, and Milwaukee. They had the win against Boston, but it was like 3 of those 4 they lost. But before that, they had beat Chicago, I think. They lose to Charlotte at
they've
home
won
after
10 of
that.
13. They've won 10 of 13.
10 of 13. Okay, so I
Yep.
missed a game. They were 9 of 12 last time. So, yeah, better than 75% of their games over the last 13. They've won them. So they're playing much better basketball. They're more connected. Their defense has picked up, and I think it's been fun to see. So, I want to bring up Ben Shepherd's 3-point percentage real quick. 37% from the field this year, which is above average.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It just maybe feels more so recently where I'm like, every time I notice like Ben Shepherd, like he gets in the right spots. Like that's the good
Yeah.
thing about Ben Shepherd is he always cuts to the right open spot. It just doesn't always result in a made basket, which is not going to be 100%. The shot's going in, but like you got a guy like Jarris who just can't miss. And then you watch Ben Shepherd shoot. It's like, man, why can't his shots go in at the same level? Because I feel like he's a better shooter. I
I
don't know
know.
why I feel that way, but I just do.
No, I mean, you're not alone on that. I feel, and this is a lot, but I feel like Ben Shepherd should be a near 40% three-point shooter. And I think in due time he could get there. And that's tough. I mean, you shoot 40% from three. You are considered a really good three-point shooter in this league. But I do think that he has that capability. And you talked about it, 37%. That's a lot better than what he shot last year. I mean, last year, Ben Shepherd was not as bad of a shooter as the 31.4% that he shot from the field. 31.4% is like, I don't know if you should be shooting threes. And he's a good 3-point shooter. He was throughout college. You could definitely live with 37% from three. But on the flip side, just one quick thing. There's a couple former Pacers in this game. Jalen Smith wearing the number 7 looked a little weird to me. Just interesting stuff. I don't know. I don't know if that's the number for him. Chris Duarte, like, I just, it's crazy, man. I mean, he's averaging 2.4 points per game on the season. Like, that guy as a rookie was a blast to
Yeah.
watch, but he has not had the same type of opportunities elsewhere. And I just feel like you still look back and you're like, why and how did Indiana make that pick? Like, how did that happen? And I know that's a topic for another day, but I just felt like, hey, 2 former Pacers. Look, Jalen Smith could have been good on this team right now. I wish him luck, but on a night like where we had Thomas Bryant, I don't know, man. I was feeling good about that.
Yeah, for about $6 million less too. So that makes you feel
Exactly.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, we knew Jalen Smith was going to probably get a nice paycheck somewhere, just
he
because there's
deserves it.
not a lot of quality bigs that can do what he does in terms of shot blocking, spread the floor, and he's a good backup center. That's what he is. But like he got himself played out of the rotation in the playoffs. But I do want to say I'm going back to Ben Shepherd. I apologize. I just real quick
Yeah,
in the playoffs. So last year he did shoot 50% against Milwaukee, 45% from three against New York. He did only shoot a less than 10%.
less
8.3% from three against the
than
Celtics. So
8%
one of
from
12.
three.
One of 12.
I mean that's brutal, but like, look, whatever. Hey, it's 4 games. I don't know, whatever you want to say, look, he shot really good in 2 of the 3 rounds. We'll give him credit for that. I think, people didn't play their best basketball against Boston, but I think that he's definitely improved this year. I don't think he's had like a lot of big opportunities to be kind of like a go-to scorer. Like he had that awesome game against New Orleans earlier in the year where he dropped 20. So I know he's capable of more, but he doesn't have that type of role. Play good defense, hit open threes, when you have him. I think just keep shooting. Don't lose confidence or anything. 37% is good. I know he's capable of more, but overall, hey, I'm happy with this win. Good win for the Pacers. Way to take care of the teams that, and dare I say this, I went into this game expecting to win. And that's something maybe we don't get to feel enough. We see like the Brooklyns on the schedule and we go, oh, I mean, anything could happen. This is the first time I didn't look over my shoulder and I felt kind of safe and all right. Like I was in a safe place. And the Indiana Pacers, they took care of me tonight.
I will say that after the game against Brooklyn, our friend Ricky Kelly did text me, or he did message me on Twitter and said, "We beat a bad team. We did it. We beat a bad team." And
Yeah,
I
there
was
we go.
cracking up because I saw Pistons fans tweeting about how do we lose to bad teams all the time. And I said, "Oh, we are not alone. We are not alone. There are other people and other teams that do that and have to go through that." But before we give out our awards tonight, I want to say, did you notice the very cool thing that was trending on Twitter? I want to say our friend C Rod. I forget the numbers in there, but it is, let's see here. C Rod 1701 had a screenshot or a picture of the Pacers scoreboard with 00,
Oh yeah,
0, 1, 2, and 3 for the
that's cool.
Pacers. The the lowest possible jersey number total ever in the game at one time together. Thought that was pretty neat.
It can't be beat. It's impossible to beat that. The Pacers will hold that record because numbers don't get any lower than that. So I think that's awesome. Love to see it. And hey,
Facci. Facts with Facci.
I mean, look, you
Bringing it
can't
back.
beat that. That is a record that will stand for the end of time. So I'm glad we were able to set a record tonight against the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, I was just laughing because at the time when he took the picture, it says 00 Matherin 6 points, 0 Haliburton 5.6 assists, 1 Toppin 5 points, 2 Nimhard 5 points, 3 Bryant 11 points. It's just like the person that had the highest number had the most amount of points too. Like how neat is that? So
Yeah. No,
uh,
hey, it's interesting stuff.
it's really cool. I mean, I'm a numbers person, so I do like that kind of stuff. So it is a very unique thing to see. And I know some people have questioned like why they have 0 and 00, but like who cares? It's fine. So
It's catching on in
I
the
would just
league.
say Pacers Twitter was on fire tonight.
Yeah.
Let's just lead in with this because I tweeted it out, Facci. I said our clutch player of the game has to go to Andrew Nembhard. He had 9 points, 9 points in the fourth quarter to kind of close things up for the Pacers. But I got to give our man, Dirty Flirty Curdy, he changed his name on Twitter after we called him out for that to Curtis Higgs 1701. He tweeted
That's
at me after I shared the clip of Nemhard's behind the back save and steal. He said, "Get hard, stay hard, Nemhard." Best tweet that I've seen all season.
Now, there's definitely one way to put it. So hey, interesting stuff. I think it's catchy. It is. So Andrew Nembhard, been playing really good basketball. So I love it. But you talked about him as your clutch player. Yeah, I definitely think that's fitting. From an MVP standpoint, I just don't know how you don't give this one to Thomas Bryant. I feel like he is absolutely deserving. I know Siakam had a bigger game, like he scored more. Thomas Bryant, I mean, if you ain't gonna give him MVP tonight, when is he ever gonna
Oh,
get it?
I mean, I led with it. I led with him. I did. I wondered if he should get the hustle player.
I mean, he in my mind, from like putting my notes down for this episode, I had him down for both. I had him down for
Okay,
both.
then we want to give him both tonight. We think he's
I
worthy
do
of
want to
both.
give him both. Quentin Jackson had his time where he got some, where he had his like career high, and I think we put him down for the feisty Foster. I think Thomas Bryant is deserving of both. I think this was just like his night, and I think he deserves it.
Okay, well, I will not push back. I was going to say tonight we give Siakam
Yeah,
the MVP for 26 points on 11 to 17 shooting
it's good.
because I do feel like Siakam does get a little bit overlooked when we
He
talk
does.
about him. Maybe
He does.
underlooked is the right
I mean,
way to
we didn't
put it.
even touch on him at all. He had 26 points in this game. Like,
Yeah,
I
he
feel like
was.
he just does it very quietly. Like, he had
Quinn
16
Buckner
at
said it.
halftime.
Did you hear him say it tonight when he checked in the game? He said he checked back into the game, I think, in the fourth quarter when they brought the starters back in with Obi Toppin instead of Siakam because Siakam was out there with that group that was playing bad. And Quinn Buckner was like, Siakam has a very quiet 26 points tonight. It was like, yeah, he just does that. It's so weird. It's like he just
I
scores
know.
in little bunches. It doesn't feel like it's overwhelming. But at the end of the day, you look at the shot, you look at the box score, and you look at his shot chart, you're just like, how did he do all that? I don't remember him doing all that.
I know. I'd say it was 7 in the first, and then he had like 9 in the second, and then he scored like 10 in the second half. It's just like little by little he does it. He does it where you're like, okay, yeah. I mean, hey, I didn't really notice it. It was like 2 baskets here, 2 baskets there. Free throw. Like, but hey, 26 points is awesome. I mean, this is a guy that leads the team in scoring that does not get talked enough about, and he is also deserving an MVP. But I'm sorry, Siakam. There will be other times. My vote is going to Thomas Bryant.
It's Thomas Bryant night, baby.
It
That
is.
is what it is. And that's going to be the title of this episode. It's Thomas Bryant night, baby.
Yep.
So
Love it.
I don't have anything else to say. Great win by the Pacers. They have to win this game. It's a game you cannot lose. You should beat this team with or without Myles Turner. I understand his importance to this team, but I think that, you got enough quality players on your roster to take care of business. So move forward. Golden State on Friday night. That game, once again, is on WTHR, Channel 13 locally. If you don't have FanDuel Sports Network or you don't want to watch it on cable, you can pull up the bunny ears. You can do what you got to do to watch it on local television. That's going to be a great opportunity for a lot of people there. But I should have probably said it at the beginning of the podcast, but if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. And please follow us on any audio platform you're listening to. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. We really need those. And I don't ever say this, hardly ever, but I have said it before. If you're listening on the audio platform and you hear the advertisements in there, we've got some really new and fun advertisements with the Blue Wire Podcast Network, so do not hit skip. You'll want to make sure that you don't miss out on what the Blue Wire Podcast Network could bring to you and your life and give you the advertisement you're looking for. And so, drinking and driving, that one's a little bit crazy for me, but regardless, I'm just saying, listen to the ads. And if you don't like ads, you can change your speed to 2.0. Go through them fast, but if you skip them, they do track that. And so it doesn't help us. So if you want to help this show out, be a supporter, we're not asking for much. Just suffer through about 2 minutes of advertisements, and the show will be back. So that is my spiel. Anything else you want to add?
I would just say, hey, look, if you're listening on YouTube, drop a comment. Love hearing from you guys, especially if it's like, I don't know, a segment that you like or something that stood out. Just whatever it is, I love hearing from you guys. And I think that's like YouTube is the easiest way to hear from our listeners. Not a lot of people might send a tweet or could be hours and hours later or, anything else. It's hard to drop a comment. YouTube, I love the days that we put up an episode and we have like 20, 30, 40 comments and things like that. It's always sparked some good debates.
We really got people last episode with the thinking you broke the curse. I mean, my friend David, who I feel like is very hard to get with that kind of stuff, he said, you guys got me with that.
Love it. Yeah, little things like that. It just makes us feel like a little bit closer to listeners when it's like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, or oh, this is funny, or love this story. Just like little stuff like that. You guys are the best. We appreciate it. But the last thing I want to say is, man, doing this show, watching the boys, it's a lot more fun when they're winning. And I think that right now, the Pacers are off to some really good momentum. I love what I'm seeing right now. They're starting to climb in the standings, just little by little. They're in the 6th spot now. We jumped Miami. We're tied with Milwaukee for 5th as we're recording this. It's like this is just, man, we were at rock bottom not that long ago, and it just shows that anything can happen in a week or two. A lot can change in the NBA, and we're seeing that firsthand with this Pacers team.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you guys are listening to this on Thursday morning, Wednesday night, whenever you're listening, I mean, Tuesday night was a bad night for the Pacers in terms of teams that won. I mean, Trae Young hits a half-court buzzer beater against the Utah Jazz in Utah to really help them. I think Miami ended up winning their game. I believe Milwaukee won. So the Pacers went from like being in the 6th spot to falling back to 8th. And so now they're back up tied with 5th. So it just kind of shows you like how tight things are right now. So if you're a standings watcher this early on in the season, like, make sure you got your blood pressure medicine if you're anxious, because it'll drive you crazy. But tomorrow, fun episode. We're going to be previewing Pacers Warriors. We're going to be talking about what worked last game, Steph versus Nembhard, Buddy Hield's first visit back to Gainbridge Fieldhouse, how Golden State dominated last time they were here in Indy. That was the same day Buddy Hield was traded. And we're going to give our prediction for the game. And then in our segment after that, we're going to talk about James Johnson, his contract fully guaranteed. There were some questions about whether or not they could cut him, get that non-guaranteed off, sign him on a few 2-day or 10-day contracts, and then once trade deadline passes, re-sign him to another contract. Tony East was all over that with the breakdown of the details on that. So if you want to listen to that on Locked On Pacers, shout out Tony East. But really good stuff there. But we got other stuff coming. Pros and cons of trading Obi Toppin. And should the Pacers look to add another center with Myles Turner dealing with that nagging calf injury and obviously getting sick tonight? Because the question is Enrique Freeman a good enough backup to be your third string center? We'll discuss all that tomorrow. But Facci, if you've got the Pacers have won 4 in a row, hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go Pacers.